What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie2988 coming at you live once again through the power of the internet. And right now is a very exciting time to be a gamer. We've got a brand new Xbox coming out tomorrow. We got a brand new PlayStation coming out on the 12th. We still have great games like Cyberpunk coming down the chute. And then if you're a PC gamer, you got brand new video cards from Nvidia and Radeon. As long as you're in a position that you can afford these types of things, you've got a lot of cool stuff to look forward to. And considering the world we're living in right now, I think it's important that we have something fun to be excited about. Unfortunately, the folks over at Kotaku do not agree. So Kotaku got a PlayStation 5 to review. I'm sure they got some games with it. And in this review, they basically talk about the stuff that you would expect them to talk about at first. They talk about the specs, they talk about the hard drive, they talk about frame rates, they talk about game selection, all of the normal stuff that you would expect. But at the end of this article, it gets a little weird, and you should have seen this coming because the title of this page that this is on is PlayStation 5 Review, Great Console, Weird Timing. It's here towards the end of the article that things get really cringy. He says, this review has spent 3,000 words talking about the PlayStation 5, which is the most I've written about anything. Which seems really weird for a journalist because I would imagine most articles you write would be about 3,000 words, but whatever. He says it's as good as a video game console as there has ever been. The combination of high ultra definition video, increased frame rates, high-end graphics, techniques like ray tracing and so forth make it a very good gaming console. But he goes on to say, I'd be remiss to ignore all the reasons not to be excited for the PlayStation 5. And I know when you hear that, your brain immediately jumps to something like, is there a technical issue? Is it overpriced? Is it because of the launch library not being robust enough? What reason would there be to not be excited about this console? Tell me, as a consumer, I want to know. He says, the world is still reeling under the weight of the pandemic. There are more Americans out of work right now than at any point in the country's history, with no relief in sight. Our healthcare system is an inherently evil institution that forces people to ration life-saving medications like insulin and choose, that word, over suffering with untreated mental illness. As I'm writing this, it looks very likely that Joe Biden will be our next president, but it's clear that the worst people aren't going away just because a new old white man is sitting behind the Resolute desk. Well, at least not this old white man. Our government is fundamentally broken in a way that necessitates radical change rather than incremental electoralism. Excuse me, sir. This is a Wendy's. No, I mean, this is a PlayStation 5 review. This has nothing to do with the PlayStation 5. It really doesn't. And so what is he trying to say here? The PlayStation 5 is bad because Biden? The PlayStation 5 is bad because insulin is overpriced? Yeah, like... I genuinely do not understand. He goes on to say that the harsh truth is that for the reasons listed above and more, a lot of people simply will not be able to buy a PlayStation 5 regardless of supply. Or if they can, concerns over increasing austerity in the United States and the growing threat of widespread political violence supersedes any enthusiasm about the console's SSD or how ray tracing makes reflections look more realistic. That's not to say you can't be excited for these things. Oh, thanks for permission. I certainly am on some level, but there's an irrefutable level of privilege attached to the ability to simply tune out the world as it burns around you. Oh my God. I won't deny that video games can be an escape. It feels great to lose yourself in a fictional world where you can fix everything. Some of us see a strength or personality trait in video game characters that we wish we saw in ourselves. As much as it sucks for real-world problems to intrude on that space, I found it increasingly difficult to focus on video games amid our current situation. Many nights, it's all I can do to play a couple of runs of Spelunky before collapsing into bed for a few hours of doom-scrolling and restless sleep. And I know I'm not alone in that feeling. We are all collectively tired, and for good reason. I'm glad that he understands that. At least he understands that a lot of us are looking forward to these new gaming consoles and the new games that are coming with it because it's a form of escape. There are some of us who are high risk for COVID and we don't want to get it and spread it to other people, so we're still quarantining. There are essential workers out there who are risking their lives every day that when they come home, they want to escape that world for a little while. There are people who are ostracized by modern day politics that do not want to be ostracized, that do not want to be attacked or made fun of, and so for just a few minutes, they can play a video game and forget that that's the world that surrounds them. Let those people have that. Let me have that. Why do you have to talk about this stuff in the middle of a PlayStation 5 review? Can we not escape it just for a little, tiny little while, even if you can't? He says, Sony and Microsoft chose a hell of a time to release their next generation of video game consoles. They didn't choose to release it now. They didn't know 2 years ago when they were building this architecture and picked this fall as the time to release it. When they announced it a year ago, they had no clue that any of this stuff was going to be happening. They had no possible, none of them thought, it'd be a really great idea is to release our gaming consoles in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know if he's stupid or being purposely obtuse here. But anyway, he says, I think the PlayStation 5 is a great machine, but it's tough to recommend it when folks are literally fighting for their lives while residing in the richest country in the world. I was very lucky to receive a PlayStation 5 for the purposes of the review, despite the fact that I'm comfortable enough to have bought one of my own. He says, if you're in the same boat, I encourage you to grab the console and see what it's all about for yourself. If you aren't, don't feel like the PlayStation 5 would change your life. It's just a video game system. It's not going anywhere. I'm looking forward to a time when we can all chat about next generation gaming on equal footing without a dozen daily crises looming over our head. Until then, let's focus on what's truly important, even if that means dipping out of the next-gen hype machine for a bit. All of this works under the fallacy that gamers or people that like video games do not care about modern-day politics, that we do not care about what's going on in the world. Obviously, we do. But when we get home, sometimes, for just a brief period of time, we want to escape what's going on in our jobs, what's going on in our lives, what's going on in politics. That's why we turn to video games. And I don't mind this guy sharing his opinions and his thoughts, but you shouldn't do this on a PlayStation 5 review. That's absurd. But even if there are gamers out there who are just focusing on their lives, focusing on their jobs, their families, their friends, and then at the end of that day, they want to break from the world that they have and just want to play video games, what's wrong with that? Why do you want to take that away from them? If they want to read this PlayStation 5 article after a long day of dealing with the world's BS, who are you to remind them about it? It's nonsensical. But this is modern day gaming journalism for you. And don't get me wrong, I do not want gaming journalism to just be repeating what the companies feed them to say. I don't want them to just be a PR arm for those companies. I do want them to be critical. I do want them to review the products fairly and objectively. But what he had to say at the end of this article has nothing to do with that. Absolutely. The closest thing to that is him saying they picked a weird time to deliver these consoles, but really, what else were they going to do? They didn't pick this time on purpose. I promise you, no one in business would. I'm glad that there are new gaming consoles coming out this week. I'm glad that there are new games coming out in the next month. I'm glad that I get to play those and you get to play those and we get to escape this harsh, nightmarish reality we're all experiencing. And I can relate. I can say that there have been nights where I just have not been able to play video games because I've been too sick, too tired, too miserable, too worried. But when I can, it is a joy. It is a relief. And I wouldn't want to take that away from anybody. And I have no clue why this author wanted to. But I guess at the end of the day, the PlayStation 5 looks like a pretty good machine. Mine will be at Best Buy to be picked up on Thursday, so I'm looking forward to playing it. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I plan to be making several videos this week about the gaming consoles as I get mine picked up, as I'm able to play them, as I'm able to unbox them, and I want to talk about which one you should purchase if you haven't made a decision yet. We'll talk about that later in the week as well, but I just had to start with this article because it was just so out of touch. Guys, as always, thanks for watching. I love you very much. I'll speak with you again soon. Now, why don't you go escape for a little while and play some video games?